The Mar-a-Lago raid's been of particular interest to me.
Of course.
It's unprecedented. I mean, literally without precedent. We've never done this before. Regardless of anyone's personal politics, there have been paperwork disputes about this in the past. I'm not asking you to comment on the politics at all. But when FBI agents, specifically Christopher Wray and the management staff, that unquestionably are briefed in a high-profile case like this, do you think it even occurs to them that they're partaking in an act that's so overtly political and has a chance to change the politics of the United States moving forward for the negative? In other words, you think they're saying to them, Merrick Garland at DOJ, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea, or is it just we're going to be loyal little soldiers here and do what you tell us to do?
I don't want to speculate on anyone else's motivation. Sure, I know what I look at, right? I've got friends that I don't speak to after that. I assume they were part of it. It's like, I don't know what happened, but you guys forgot to throw the BS flag on that. You asked me to go raid President Obama's house. You asked me to go raid President Bush's house. It's not happening. I'm sorry, it's not happening. I'm not doing that. And I'm going to probably be pretty vocal. That's probably going to be my last day. It's not going to happen. So we had a lot of people that said yes. And I think that so much compliance got done. We talked briefly. Here's what I'll kind of share as my last kind of concern. Every single FBI agent has to go to the Holocaust Museum for a full day when we're in the academy. And they have a special program. I don't know if you've ever been to it, but it's well worth your time. If you're a law enforcement officer, you should definitely go through the Holocaust Museum and see the piece they do for law enforcement specific. It's a walking tour. It's looking through the lens of how did this atrocity take place? And the only way it takes place is minor government officials are on board, and local law enforcement and state law enforcement and federal law enforcement has to say yes. Because if anybody refuses to get with the program, it doesn't happen. And the answer, I'm just following orders, the Nuremberg piece, it doesn't fly. We know better. Like, that's the whole point of history. We're supposed to be able to see that. That's why every agent has to go to that day. We're supposed to know that if they ask you to do something that's illegal, immoral, or unethical, following orders is not an excuse. It's not an excuse for me. You can't tell me to go get a vaccine that I'm not going to go get. It goes against my moral principles. I'm not doing it. You can do whatever comes next. You can ask me to do a search warrant that's not right. I'm not going to go do it, because it fundamentally changes the fabric of this country. It changes the game. It puts people in play in the political arena that shouldn't be. Law enforcement shouldn't be in the political arena, number one. I think we can all agree on that. I think most Americans would stand behind that of all political inklings. And the second piece is we don't go after our former leaders, and we don't go after the opposition leader. That's Banana Republic stuff. Everyone's said it. I know you've said it too. It gets me heated to a level that I can't stand. And it's one of the reasons why when you made your appeal on your radio show, or you might have done it on your podcast, it's like America is in jeopardy. I agree. And I don't want my children to grow up in a world where that's the barrel they're looking down.
Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth, because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Friday. It is May the 24th. It is a friendly Friday. We're going to have Steve Friend on momentarily, and we will be talking about all things related to patience. Patience as a weapon. Not getting involved with the enemy's mistakes when they are making them. Napoleon told us that. There's some Russians that have made this suggestion as well. There's some art of war behind it. This week has been a really good lesson, I think, for a lot of you. And I played that clip to start the show as a reminder that my position has not changed about what happened at Mar-a-Lago since September of 2022. It hasn't even come close to changing. I still don't have friends because they went and did that thing. It's important to remember that we don't have to agree on everything, and we're allowed to have opinions. That's the strength of the so-called conservative movement, if any movement exists at all. The strength is that we don't have to agree on everything. We just have to have common goals, and we generally have to have the same values. I think that's still true. Speaking of values, if you guys want to support this program, you can support my friends at CatholicVote.org. On, Wednesday night, I went and had a little chat with about 40 people, 20 couples, Catholic couples in College Station. Got a chance to just shake some hands, meet some people. It's always good to go do that and kind of get a reset on what people know and what they don't know. And the thing they don't know is that this country is in jeopardy because of some of the civil liberties that are being threatened by my ex-girlfriend, the FBI. You guys can learn more about that. And the folks that are keeping me in the fight, they're interested in faith, family, and freedom. You don't have to be Catholic to be interested in those things. You just have to be someone who cares about America. And you can do that by following them on social media at Catholic Vote. You can follow them on their website, which is CatholicVote.org, and you should sign up for The Loop. You should sign up for The Loop. It's important. It gives you really, really good information. There's some good news in there, too. They had a great story the other day talking about sitting down and having a Catholic dinner party, having a friendly dinner party with people that may or may not agree with you, but that's how proselytizing happens. That's how America gets saved, I think. It happens at kitchen tables. It happens over a drink, over a meal, breaking bread. It's the way that teams are formed. It's the way that friendships are solidified, and they mentioned that. I think it was really worth reading. There's some really good stuff in The Loop. If you guys are not, you don't have to be Catholic to get The Loop. It really is. It's completely universal. I know Steve Friend will back me up on that. And let me also just bring on my buddy, because I'm going to have him do our read for, he's going to do the read for Patriot Coolers. You want to do a Patriot Coolers read, Steve? Can I just throw you on the screen?
For the OG sponsor?
Yeah, let's do it. What do you got?
Of the Kyle Seraphin Show. Here's my Tumblr from Patriot Coolers, folks. I would highly encourage you to go and use promo code Kyle, K-Y-L-E, to get yours. This is really cool. This is the first Tumblr I've ever had that has the twist on, and we put that to the test right away. It is definitely spill proof. I have a 6-year-old, and he went right at it, and I can say that it is keeping my drink right now very cool and spill proof, because I am not necessarily, accident proof myself. But I would encourage all of you to go to Patriot Cooler, get the suspendables, laser etched flag. We've got the
raise it high.
Pen is mightier than the sword, unless the sword is mightier than the pen. Patriot Coolers, and it does have the 50 stars underneath. I was wondering if they had adjusted that for us, but it is there. It's really cool. It's really unique. I would encourage everyone to get there. Support the OG sponsor of the Kyle Seraphin Show, which has been here with you for like 15 months. That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Folks, patriotcoolers.com, promo code KYLE. Yeah, of course, so we're going to be doing some Steve Friend talking. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a long week, but I always value clarity. Even if it's not the answer I wanted, I want clarity. But if I do have to take one positive thing away, I think it's worth sharing on the Kyle Seraphin Show. It's something that you will be excited about, too. My boys finished up school this week, so they had sort of their graduation ceremony, and it went for like 5 hours. It was brutal. But everybody's really proud of their kids. My kids did well. They got honor rolls and all that. But my proudest moment to date as a father arrived when they were watching one of those awful Godzilla movies that have come out, the CGI monsters fighting each other.
Okay.
And there was a scene where the tactical team went in, and there was naturally a girl boss who was the team leader taking the SEAL team in. And my 10-year-old looked over at me. He goes, "Dad, I don't think girls should be in a combat role. Maybe if they want to be, nurses behind the scenes, but we have to protect girls." And I thought, mission achieved.
That's correct. That's what we're conserving. That's what we should be conserving. That there's value and there's a difference, right? Like femininity matters, which means you got to make masculinity great again. Good for you. That's a good feeling to know that your kids have taken on the lessons and they've looked out there. My
indoctrination is well underway in the Friend household. You have to indoctrinate your kids because you have the added benefit of being right. Things that are just you can't refute. There's not 71 genders. There's only 2.
There's only 2. All right, I'm gonna throw a couple of quotes. I went on a quote run this morning, and I started pulling these off. It's gonna be a different kind of show. We're not gonna only talk about news. By the way, somebody was talking about Godzilla movies in the chat about how they're great and whatever, and you're talking about how they're awful because they're CGI. They used to be like claymation monsters. Do you remember that?
Yes, I actually got from the bargain bin at Walmart some of the older ones and blew my kids' minds because it was like a guy in a costume with a toy boat that was picking up out of a bathtub, and they just had no comprehension that how advanced stuff has gotten in the last couple decades.
It's kind of interesting because some people don't know what's real. Actually, this may even play into what we're talking about today. But my kids actually have a hard time telling a difference between cartoons and reality because the reality type cartoons are so close. And then also because they're children at a certain age, we don't realize it. Like they look like real people because they have fingers and eyeballs and they say words, but they don't know what the words mean. They're just mimicking speech patterns. My daughter right now is using the word literally all the time, which makes me want to just grab her by the face and I stop her every single time and I say, "You sound foolish, please stop." So I'm going to coax that out of her. She's not going to be one of these like Gen Z idiot type kids that says literally, like I can't even deal with it. Like she says things like that right now and they're foolish, but she gets it from television or she gets it from people around her. It's awful. And so I'm going to knock that out of her. That's going to happen. But they can't tell the difference. But we used to be able to really know when something was made up and fake. You go back and watch the old Ghostbusters movies with the Stay Puft, with the plasma blasters or the what are they called? The proton packs. And they're shooting stuff and the explosions are crazy. The explosions are so funny. Same thing with Star Wars. They're fake as all get out.
We watched E.T. last weekend.
It's so fake.
It does not hold up. The visual effects, I mean, for the time, I think that was 1989.
They used to just do this. They would just go like lights, like flashing lights. They'd be like, the lights are hitting you. And then you'd go like, something is happening. Aha, something has appeared. Bed knobs and broomsticks. They just like, CGI cut. The CGI cut was basically that they took 2 layers of film and they laid it on top of each other. And one layer was flashing like really, really aggressively. And that's how you beamed into places. They didn't have green screens. They put you on a bed with wires that you can actually see. And they're flying through a starry sky on a set somewhere. It's great. I love this stuff. And I want to be able to know that reality is not whatever it is. Because people start thinking, Marvel is real, that girl bosses can actually do these things. These are all CGI garbage.
That's why I always like Wizard of Oz. Just putting myself in a time capsule and realizing that they had never seen color when that movie came out, and to go to the theater and see black and white, and then all of a sudden color drops in, how much their minds must have exploded to have that experience.
Probably about the same way that my mind exploded when I was a kid watching The Matrix, and the first time somebody did the wire routine and went up the wall and came running down, and you're like, they just ran sideways, like what happened? It changed the game. Now we just expect people to do wild stuff like that, to fly and look real. But man, some of the stuff they did, I remember watching the making of The Matrix and the fact that they put cameras everywhere around it. And it was like, we're living in a time when reality is very easily bent. And I think that's actually kind of what I want to talk about right now, because people are bending to a algorithmic impression of reality and it's not real.
I think that's fair. And I always harken back to Tina Fey in 2008 doing the Sarah Palin, and that was the actual person doing an actual impression. And the number of people that still today think that Sarah Palin uttered, "I can see Russia from my house." If that's possible, what is the AI component? What is the CGI component to it? And now with social media, the information age, you can manipulate everything for everybody.
It's the internet. It's the internet quote from Abraham Lincoln, which I'm sure you probably have on tap.
Yeah. You can't trust everything you read on the internet. Abraham Lincoln.
Right. We're at a time when people are putting out things that are false and that are misrepresenting positions, and then they attribute that position to you, which I think is really important today. So here's what I want to talk about, folks. You never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. And the 2 most powerful warriors are patience and time. These are the overwhelming thoughts that I want to get involved in right now. This is where I want to hone in on for people who are upset about whatever you and I have said. So look, there are 2 positions that are being taken right now that I'm gonna stand and we're gonna address Wednesday's show a little bit too, because we did an interview yesterday with Aaron Gogley, who, by the way, Aaron Gogley agrees with me that every FBI has always put the standard paperwork out. I actually don't have any beef with what Dan Bongino said on his show. He didn't mention me by name, but I took it personally because he's talking about people that I know and or respect. Bill Shipley is correct. Garrett O'Boyle sounds like was in the crosshairs. It looks like you were. I got off Twitter. I was just like, this is going to get dumb right away. I can already tell it. Julie Kelly and I had a little exchange in the background. I said, hey, Julie, thanks for reminding me to get off Twitter, which I meant actually pretty sincerely, because I actually am looking for any excuse to not be on social media. And she wrote back and said, you're not going to win this one. And I said, enjoy your clicks, which is not a very nice way to say it. But seriously, if you're going to commit to something that is factually inaccurate and you just don't want to know what is true, There is a nuanced take. You guys did a great job on it, AMRAD, yesterday. You want to summarize essentially that there are much juicier things that happened. That's why I played the beginning of the clip, starting with my first interview in public. But you touched, there's some real juicy eating that is available in the Mar-a-Lago raid. And if we forget that, then we are interrupting the enemy doing their worst work, which is actually converting people.
Well, first I'll say that the patience element to it was something that we discussed a little bit. And I was saying, look, a couple of weeks ago, there was the Hamas riots on college campuses. And I said, Godzilla reference, right? Step back, let them fight.
Yes.
And we couldn't help it. We had to pass some hate speech laws that are now going to be turned back on us. And now I can't help but notice the deafening silence from the left, which knows that patience is a valuable tool, as there's a lot of infighting on the right here. But what we sort of talked about was just generally what use of force is and how it is always in effect, always at play, whether or not there's paperwork or not. And if you are walking around the office, if you're on a search warrant, if you're on surveillance, if you're just at home on your couch watching Netflix, the use of force policy is always in effect, and that's really what this paperwork really is. It's a CYA saying, like, when was the last time you were briefed on use of force? We know you all know it, but just the CYA, we'll just put it in there. And I said, look, because you're not patient, you opened yourself up for the drop, which happened the next day when they said the same paperwork was in the Biden consensual search. And if you have to use Malthusian ethics, and I'm not a big advocate of it, the ends don't justify the means. But if that's the nature of things now, that's the battlefield conditions that we have to go to. I get that inclination to want to use that. But if you have the opportunity to be honest and also win because your information is better and juicier, which we dropped yesterday, you should probably go with that too, because an easily discredited lie then discredits everything you say. So when I talk about other elements to the Mar-a-Lago raid that I think were a lot more important, like the fact that they brought in an outside squad to Miami division, which is kind of a departure from the norm, and why was there no pushback from the special agent in charge there, who had previously been demoted from an assistant director in charge position?
We're talking about George Pirro here. Yep.
Why was he demoted? And could it be because he had very compromising material in his background, including some sexual escapades inside a bureau vehicle, which he then wrecked? I mean, if you want to get down the rabbit hole of the Stormy Daniels stuff that's been going on in New York, that's all been attached to Donald Trump and his camp, I mean, I'm sure they would appreciate that sort of stuff to toss back at the FBI. But we're caught up in like a paperwork dispute. And that's just, I mean, it's boring. It's boring because you're making us defend our ex-girlfriends, and I don't like doing it.
Yeah, and somebody accurately pointed out in our comments the other day, we're not defending what the FBI did. We're just explaining that what they did is predictable. And I'm gonna take the screen for 1 second here, Steve, and I'm gonna give the analogy that I have, because folks, it's really, really important. Number one, the paperwork that we're talking about, it's predictable in so much as once you do step 1, you're gonna get 2 and 3. And more importantly, it's actually dealt for a very specific audience. I've had a lot of FBI agents who probably have never reached out to me before reach out and say, I appreciate that you're being fair about this. People that I don't like. My ex-boss, my former boss, John Nance, has been out there saying the same thing that I'm saying. And you'll notice that they're not getting any FBI commentators to come on and talk about it on Fox. Anybody that wants to whip this up into a frenzy, I actually think they're interrupting the enemy when the enemy is doing a great job of destroying themselves. This is a bad play because there's a lot more to it. But let me just go this way. If you were to come to me, and Steve and I, we've had this conversation. So Steve, if you were to come to me and say, Kyle, I let a fly into my house. My wife left the door open and there is now a fly flying around my house. And I say, yeah, I hate flies. And I do hate flies, by the way, folks. I hate flies. And there are flies all over the place right now in Texas. I have a bug assault gun that I shoot the flies with. I do it when I'm on the phone with people. I'll walk around and hunt flies while I'm talking to people on the phone. If there's a fly in your house and you call me up and you go, Kyle, man, I've had enough of this fly. I'm going to grab my rifle and I'm taking it out. I would advise you against that, would I not? You know I would.
And you're about all the guns, but I think even there you would probably draw.
I'm about all the guns.
Firm line in the sand.
But I'm going to tell you, do not use a rifle to go after a fly in your house. That's a bad idea. It's both dangerous, it's stupid, it's foolish, it's immoral, it's unethical, it's probably illegal. It has unintended downrange consequences. I'm going to tell you that choosing a rifle to go after a fly is very much like using a search warrant to go and raid Mar-a-Lago. These are inappropriate tools for the problem at hand, as proven by the fact that they were able to use a consent-based search to go after Joe Biden and get the same types of information. They should have gotten consent. Steve D'Antuono argued for that. But When you tell me that you're going to use the rifle and you commit to that course of action, which I think is absolutely abhorrent and stupid and foolish and dangerous. And then the other neighbor comes out and says, guys, you're not going to believe this, but there's actually a hole in the side of my wall. And I go, why? And they go, well, Steve shot a bullet into a fly and it hit my wall. Can you believe that he used a bullet to kill a fly? And I say, well, he told me he was going to use a rifle. So yeah, that's actually predictable. That's what comes out of rifles, bullets. The projectile is actually not the thing that I'm most shocked about. I'm shocked that Steve chose to use the wrong tool. But what comes out of that tool is predictable and inevitable. If you choose to do a search warrant, if you choose to do any operation where you're going to bring FBI agents in to do something, which, by the way, this could have been an executive decision where some executives tried to negotiate and just see if they could come in. Wouldn't it be nice if the idiots like Peter Strzok, who decided to open investigations from headquarters, which they never usually do, if a Peter Strzok level section chief or above was like, hey, we're going to go and do a negotiation. We're going to go down there to Mar-a-Lago and actually meet face to face and tell them what's at play. What people don't realize that I know, and now you know, CI-14, the Russian espionage squad, was the group that was running this search warrant. That's the juicy eating. That's the insanity. They took a Russian counterintelligence squad down from out of their area down to Miami to go do something that they've never done before. And why are they serving it? As you said, a likely compromised SAC in that area who had no ability to push back, who had all kinds of sexual malfeasance that was listed in multiple inspector general's reports, including having sex with people in his office, dating and having sex with someone else's wife who was also his employee. They were both his employees. That's crazy. So when you have that happening, you don't get the normal check and balance that should have happened. And so we're going to be in a totally different world, a chaotic world. But the fact that the right is right now focusing on something that is basically, it's a semantics argument, is it not? I mean, that's what we're talking about here. Yes?
Yes, and I think that it could easily just be. Let me just proffer. Let's say everything went the way that it should have, and let's stick a pin in the fact that the probable cause of the case is garbage. It shouldn't have been brought. But let's just pretend for a second that it is. And Peter Strzok, rolled on down there and said, "Hey, look, I want to do a consensual search," and they were like, "Great," and signed the paperwork. And he went and did his consensual search and raided, I don't know, Melania's underpants drawer. While he was doing that, the use of force policy was still in effect.
That's right.
Without a frogman team coming out of the water, helicopters, and a tactical team, like Peter Strzok by himself would be under the same use of force policy. And I think that for a case-by-case basis, here's where it doesn't make sense. And it was the example that we talked about a few weeks ago. There was a Secret Service agent who lost her mind and attacked her team. I mean, so for you to say, well, this is case-by-case basis, guys, we know you're cops. We know you have training and tools for your own defense, if it's necessary, if something crazy were to happen. But for today only, you're not allowed to protect yourself. And then something crazy happens, that'll never, ever happen except when it did 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And a person has a mental breakdown and attacks them. They have to just sit there and take it. That has nothing to do with
and they won't,
nothing to do with anything else. It's just personal protection.
That's right. It's not there. Let me just read something that somebody posted for me, and I thought this was good. First and last show, this was on Wednesday. Had to come here because someone said you changed your stance from yesterday. Nope. My answer to them is always going to be the same. Thank you for keeping your mind narrow. It makes you much easier to control. And listen, I'm not at war with anybody in the conservative movement. I'm just going to tell you if it's a bad take. Like I'm not mad at Julie Kelly even. I'm actually just disappointed. And if Dan is mad with me, I'm not mad at Dan. I'm over it. It doesn't make a difference. It's really sad to me that we're attacking people that might have a slightly different angle on an opinion based on different experience. And one of the most important experiences, and I want people that are sitting here listening to our chat, and if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify or iTunes or Rumble, any of the places that you're watching or listening, I appreciate you, number one. I appreciate you having an open mind. I've been to Mar-a-Lago when Trump was not there, and so have you. And
Twice.
Twice you've been there, right? That's what I thought. I thought the second time was true too. What's amazing to me is this. When we went there, did anyone search you?
No.
Did they pat you down?
Asked for my ID and let me walk in.
They didn't pat you down. Did they put you through a magnetometer?
No.
So the level of searching at this so-called supposedly Secret Service controlled facility. There are areas of it that are off limits, which you and I both experienced, actually.
Which we just experienced. We actually had to, pull rank and get Kash Patel to let us take a photograph standing near a flagpole because Secret Service came out of the wood line and said, you're not allowed to take pictures here. And Kash had to kind of smooth it over and say, hey, like, these guys are friendlies and they just want a picture standing by an American flag. I don't think that's a security risk. There's no sort of structural integrity being put at risk. They're not showing anything other than an American flag. And then the Secret Service agent then kind of let us do that. But yeah, they jumped on that right away.
So there are areas that are off limits, but it's not the entirety of the compound. And we didn't get searched and we didn't get magnetometers. They treat that place differently when Trump is there versus when he's not. That's the first thing that people should understand. So the fact that the FBI actually waited until the Secret Service had a different security posture because the former POTUS was not there, that's actually really important. We're talking about minutia and details that do matter. Here's the thing that I think is probably going to be groundbreaking to most people. If HRT was involved, and we have every reason to believe they were, we have a lot of different people coming from inside the FBI saying that they were involved. Like every special mission unit team, HRT does its own security brief. They do their own ops plan. They have a global ops plan, and they have their own team-based ops plan, including for individual parts of their team, whether it be aviation, whether it be canine. These are questions that should have been brought to us so we could help the investigative team. I don't know if Trump's people have all that stuff and they just haven't released it yet. My guess is not. My guess is they don't know to ask for it because most people who have worked in the FBI probably don't know that. Not everybody has done training with that very, very small group of people. We're talking about less than 100 guys that are on HRT. And then the various units that interface with them are also relatively small in a 40,000 person organization. Did you ever do joint ops with HRT?
I did. We did a couple times, and the most prominent one was the Gretchen Whitmer case. But just to get an idea, everything the FBI does, the middle letter stands for bureaucracy. It's so granular because it's a bureaucracy. There's paperwork for every little thing. HRT puts that on steroids. I saw elements of their briefing that they had internally, and they had to the centimeter the level of where the window sills were on the first floor around the entire structure. I don't know how they took those readings, but they must have technology that does. I don't know why you would need that unless you were, some sort of sophisticated sniper. I don't know. I don't know where the value was, but the FBI in general says, like, hey, you have to have at least 2 pistol magazines on you. The uniform of the day is X, Y, and Z. Here's the route to the nearest trauma center in the case of a medical emergency. But HRT takes that to a whole nother level.
We did that for everyday surveillance operations. Wherever we were operating, we had all of those things flagged. We may not have briefed all of it, but I was the medic and I was the one in charge, and I knew where all the trauma centers were. So whether I told anybody else didn't matter because I knew where it was, and we had a backup medic and he knew where it was. So unless both of us got taken out, nobody was going to have that thing where we were going to be confused. Yeah, HRT, for those of you, we're doing acronyms, that's the hostage rescue team. It's the FBI's tier 1 unit that does sophisticated tactical interventions. They get flown around the country for various things. They were at Waco, they were at Ruby Ridge, and there's something very interesting. I had a person reach out to me, and I'm not going to get a lot of details into it because people didn't, if you don't ask to be a named source, you're an unnamed source to me. But somebody who had a lot of, let's say, inside baseball, from what I could tell, mentioned that they were actually on the committee, the group of agents that put together that FD 888, and it was in response to the Ruby Ridge shooting, that they needed to have a generalized action plan, an operations plan that laid out not just what was going on, but HRT sort of deviated from what was typical rules of engagement and the standardized version of deadly force against Randy Weaver's family. I'm 100% in favor of saying that was a terrible situation. But I'm not 100% sure that the FBI was the part that was the most terrible. Actually, the articulation of it is really troubling to me. If you miss a shot and the shot was justified, you're still good, but you're still accountable for that round goes. But ATF was the one that actually executed the raid. They were the problem. And this is the story that we're missing right now, folks. The opportunity cost of being so interested in a Mar-a-Lago raid is we are not talking about the really insane thing, which is that there is new coverage coming out talking about the ATF shot a man in Little Rock specifically because they were doing the same damn thing that they did at Waco and they did in Idaho in the 90s. They are showing that they are trying to make themselves relevant. They are trying to do a press push by getting this splashy headline of this guy is an illegal gun dealer. The ATF passed a rule redefining gun dealers, and we've talked about on this program, but they wanted that killing that happened in Little Rock. The airport manager, They wanted that to be the shining example of like, look, this was an illegal gun dealer. He bought 6 Glocks at a time. Folks, you could buy as many guns as you want. I would buy 15 AR-15s at the same time. They were all the same. And if I chose to later on sell them to my friends or family members, that doesn't make me a gun dealer. That makes me a guy who saw an opportunity to buy something that was good. And then I wanted to, divest myself of an asset that has tangible value. In any case, that's the danger, I think. I'm curious if you think the same thing, if you've read the same stories.
I did. That ATF story, there's just a lot there. I mean, there's a lot of elements to even take it. There's the mission creep and the bureaucratic nature of federal law enforcement or federal government in general, where if you read through what they actually did to that guy, they used the rules to go after him for exercising his Second Amendment rights because the ATF doesn't think that your Second Amendment means anything, and they think guns are very bad, and they want to go after you, and they'll change the rules on you if they need to. But they used advanced, sophisticated investigative tools. They put trackers on this guy's car. Why would you do that? Well, they have a quota, same as the FBI. They want to use these tools, justify their existence. People are going to get promoted off the fact that they put a tracker on somebody's car. So there's an element of the hierarchy and the way that goes. And then there's the tactical element to it. This guy worked at an airport. You can't carry a firearm in an airport
without tipping yourself off to the security, because you actually have to go through a magnetometer or a body scan. So when you and I wanted to go and carry a gun in an airport as a federal agent, we had to go and tell the people that are the airport security there. And there's a whole protocol. It goes through TSA. But you is it CBP? No, it's just TSA. It's blue shirts, right?
Yeah, blue shirts. But he works there. Yep. If you've done even a modicum of surveillance and build up, which you would think you would do on this huge case that's going to make everybody's career and justify the ATF entirely.
Yep.
You couldn't just liaise with the airport police and then walk in and arrest him for whatever offense you think that you have, and then subsequently execute a search warrant at his residence. He has no expectation in the middle of the night that you're going to come banging on the door and cut the electricity, so he has no way of knowing who's actually there. As they had the weaponization committee had a hearing where his attorney was up there sort of explaining it. They killed the power. They killed the ring camera. So he couldn't even have the ability to look who was on the outside. He has no expectation of having interaction with law enforcement because he's, to his knowledge, he's exercising his Second Amendment right. And then the last element of it is they plugged him in the head. I don't know about you, but they never trained us to shoot to the head first. So they either need to really work on their firearms training at the ATF, which probably should, or they're there to just kill a guy. I don't know. There's not really a benign, innocent reason for that other than I'm a crummy shot. And if you're on a tactical team doing that, issues.
Major issues. Nobody trains for the headshots. They train as a follow-up if somebody happens to be wearing body armor, but I've never heard the primary shot being to the head. Yeah, major issues here. Listen, all of this is to say that we are interrupting the enemy. The enemy is people who don't like freedom, people who want to argue in favor of weaponized government. We are interrupting the enemy when they are doing the thing we need them to do. People need to get back to the original play here. The play is not for Trump supporters, folks. It's not for Trump supporters. Trump supporters are going to vote for Trump. If you're MAGA, you're MAGA. Would you agree on that, Steve?
Yes, I think that's they're reliable. The whole element of him saying I could go out and shoot a man on Fifth Avenue and they would still support me. It probably pretty close to 100% true.
Here's my issue. We're not trying to convince people on the left or the right now. We're trying to find the people that are in the middle. And to get people in the middle, and by the way, this was brought up by PBD yesterday talking to Dan because I watched that show because I wanted to see what was going on. It was kind of interesting. It's always interesting to interview somebody in their own space. You go somewhere outside of your space and do that. I think that's actually a really good move to go and engage in that. I'd love to do more of that kind of thing where we're actually talking to people in their space because then it's their home field advantage. PBD said something, and I heard Dan say, I haven't thought about that, but you're just right. There's a very small percentage of people in this country that are swayable. The people that are anti-Trump forever, they're going to probably stay there. The people, and they've already been converted if they're going to be converted. The people that are 100% MAGA, they're there too. We're arguing for independence, and that is actually being picked up by those who are in CNN. The argument is going to be, can Donald Trump pick up more than Biden? And can he pick up more than RFK, who is the alternate choice for people that are not into Biden, but might be susceptible to going to somebody else? So here's a little piece. I want to just kind of give you this video. We'll react to it in a second here.
Those who are disenchanted with the two major parties, right? Those who didn't vote for Biden or Trump or didn't actually even cast a ballot back in 2020. Look at who those folks are supporting right now. What you essentially have is a two-person race with RFK Jr. at 37% and Donald Trump at 30%, Joe Biden way back at 12%. And I think this gives you an indication of why both of them are going to that Libertarian convention. They both believe that they can appeal to third parties, those folks who support third parties, and essentially say those people who are disenchanted with the system, RFK wants to be their guy, but Donald Trump also wants to be their guy.
It's very interesting. 37% of the people who sat out last time. Okay, so Karl Rove, I shared part of that op-ed. He says RFK Jr. is going to take more votes from Trump. Obviously, I've heard this argued every which way to Sunday. What do the numbers tell you?
Yeah, at this particular point, it does look like RFK Jr. is going to take more votes away from Trump than Joe Biden. But it's not a landslide, Aaron. I think that's the important thing here. If you look at the latest Quinnipiac University poll, what you see is that the folks who support RFK Jr. in the three-way, when you squeeze it down to a two-way, you see that Donald Trump wins 51% of them. Joe Biden wins 37%. Now, again, that's not a landslide, but it's something that could matter in a tight election, right? It's the type of thing that could make the difference if RFK Jr. is, in fact, stays in the race and continues to poll those high percentages that Eva was talking about.
That's right.
All right. That's the real discussion that needs to be had right now. Where do the people in the middle land? Can you convince them? And I don't think you convince them with ultra MAGA anything. I don't think that's how you do it. I don't think you do it with partisanship. I think you do it with nuance and a sophisticated saying, look, let's stick on the issues, because the issues are overwhelming, and they're overwhelming in favor of any conservative position outside of the other. Look, the Biden administration is running on a losing record. They want to do abortion. They want to do an open border. They just had another failure. They tried to push their garbage border bill through. They want to tell you that everybody is racist. Like, these are not really, they want to run on, they can't run on the economy, so they got to run on Trump as Hitler. They don't have a great option. They would love to see people on the right try to get in bed and like freak out about things that are not major issues. And it turns out that standardized paperwork is not a winner, I don't think, for people that are otherwise not paying attention. The pocketbook is. It's the things that actually they can look around and go, oh shit, I'm broke and I can't buy a house, and housing is insane, and the cost of rent is going up, and my grocery bill is twice what it was. That's where you win this stuff, unless I'm totally missing the boat here.
And you dug into this when there was the softening, to put it conservatively, of the Trump position on abortion, and how they were. You argued that he was wrong on that issue, but I argued that tactically that was a mistake, because that's an issue that you're not going to get any ground on, because people who are voting on that issue are either absolute pro-life or they're absolute pro-choice.
Yes.
So you're not fighting for the pool of people with that issue that you need to on this, and as opposed to appealing to the guys you either have guaranteed in the bank or you will never get to. Nobody's like, I was never Trump, but then he changed his position on the abortion. He softened it, so I'm coming on over. Like, there's nobody that's their primary issue. Like that'll be tertiary at best.
That's right.
So that was my argument when it came.
Well, and I had an interesting view into what Catholic vote is like. It's always good to talk to other people that are smart, that care about things and look at things differently. I'm not like a policy guy. I'm like a common sense kind of guy. I'm a generalist, and I'm definitely not a specifics, expert in any one particular thing. On anything. I'm a decent person when it comes to tactical medicine, but I'm certainly not the best. It's not what I spent my whole life doing, but I know about it. I can talk about it. The thing that was very interesting to me about what Catholic Vote said is they said, we're not going to touch abortion the way that people think it is. We're not going to play the game, and we're certainly not going to fight on the grounds that the political left wants to, which is, are you ever going to ban abortion? Are you going to do this? The argument should be as follows. A pro-life position is pro-life. And that doesn't mean anti-abortion per se, because that's what they want to frame it as. So listening to Brian Burt's the other day, he said the guidance they've given the Trump administration, and they have some say to it, they said, listen, just say that Trump is going to do every single thing possible to help mothers keep their babies. We're going to fund the organizations like the crisis pregnancy centers. We're not hurting anybody's feelings. But if you want to take $1 billion and give it to Planned Parenthood, we want to give $1 billion to people that are trying to help adoptions and folks that are trying to get through difficult pregnancies and help mothers that are in high-risk situations. That's what you do. You affirm life. You don't go anti anything. You always go positive. And so that's the argument they made. What a good idea. And is it a winner? No, because it's a federalist position. Like the court already told us, like it's a state-by-state thing. So the federal government staying out of it is not a bad idea. Like I said, you could be wrong for having not being able to say the thing. Like, I think it's courageous to step forward and say the thing you need to say, but that's probably not how you win this election. Certainly not for people in the middle that don't give a shit, because they don't. Like, do they care at all? If you're in the middle and you're weighing your options between an RFK, a Biden, and a Donald Trump, you're going to go based on what's best for you.
and I saw that there was this study, I think it came out of MIT. It was like a cost of living calculator they had. And they said in most states, family, husband, wife, 2 children, which is half of what you have at the Seraphin household, to live comfortably in most states in America now, your income has to be $178,000.
That's insane. That's insane for almost everybody. I never made $178,000 in our house. So unless you're locked into a mortgage where you actually have 2020 rates under Donald Trump type stuff, like the 2.0, the 2.5 interest rate, you're screwed if you're trying to do that stuff. Let me talk about somebody. Let me do a sponsor real quick, and we're going to come back to a thought that I'm going to have from Sun Tzu, because we are in a war right now, and I want to get some advice from ancient art of war type stuff. And we can be smarter. We being anybody who wants to see conservative victory. Folks, if you guys want to support the program, go to mypillow.com/Kyle, mypillow.com/Kyle, constantly updating their deals on a week-to-week basis. Apparently this week they're doing things with slippers. You can always check them out for mattress toppers. I have the towels, which I'm now kind of a fan of. I've been using them and they change. They're really fluffy. So until I destroy them, I'm a fan of that. Guys, promo code Kyle, K-Y-L-E. When you go to checkout at Mike Lindell's, mypillow.com, or if you do mypillow.com/Kyle, it should auto-populate for you. Discounts anywhere from 20 to 50% off, depending on the item you get. You're going to get the same deal as anybody else. But you'll be supporting us, which we do really appreciate. I'm going to share with you a little idea. Steve will come back to this in 1 second. Are you ready? When the enemy is relaxed, make them toil. When full, starve them. When settled, make them move. In other words, push the enemy into a place where they don't want to operate. The danger is along with that previous quote that we had coming from Napoleon, you never interrupt the enemy when he is making a mistake. These two things, I think, play very similarly. If you can push the enemy outside of a comfort zone, you do so. But if the enemy has chosen to go somewhere stupid, allow them to do it. The enemy of America right now, because I don't think you could argue any other way. Seb Gorka said it. He was like, I'm not saying that the Democrats hate America. I'm just saying if they did hate America, would they act any differently? It's kind of a classic.
I think it's fair. I mean, you just have to listen to what they say.
That's how producer Phil would always say it. It's very, very simple. So the question is this. Do we interrupt them, or do we make ourselves a problem? Do we want to make this all about us, or can we let it be the referendum on a terrible Joe Biden situation? And look, you've also got guys like Jim Comey out there. Allow this all day long. Allow the Biden action figure who came in under Obama and wanted to destroy America, I can say, like Jim Comey is a villain. He's the hero of his own story, but it's his own story that he's the only one who sees it. He's a villain from the way he's, and he's gone fully crazy partisan. This is nonsensical. Let them run this all day. This resonates with a very small number of people who look around and go, but didn't we just hear about them going after parents at school boards? They didn't specifically say what kind of parents or how they voted. They went after parents because they were parents and they cared about, not reading pornography. Here's Jim Comey. We'll take a breather. We both work for this guy.
When you think about a second Trump administration, what do you think the implications would be for the FBI?
Oh, serious, for the Justice Department and the FBI, because Trump is coming for those institutions. He knows their power, and I think he has regrets that he didn't work hard enough to corrupt them last time. So he's coming for them, and that's a danger for all Americans. He's going to put people in positions in those organizations. He didn't have all-stars the last time. He'll have the bottom of the barrel this time, but people who will want to do his will, and that should worry every American. This election matters. Because of a reason like that, people have to participate. You cannot sit on the sideline. I don't care how you feel about Joe Biden, you must vote for him because the consequences on the other side are too severe.
The danger of this election is that somebody will do something to the FBI. Like, who gives a rat's butt? Nobody cares, Jim Comey. It's the craziest position. Let him make that position all day long. That the election matters. You have to vote for Joe Biden if you don't like him, even if you're broke. Because the FBI, that's the best. Let the enemy do that all day.
He's pathetic, and I'm loath to always do the whataboutism and stuff like that. I mean, but he just owns himself every time he opens his mouth because he's so pedantic and so arrogant, and he will sit there and gaslight you to your face and say things like, the guy who was in office who, while I was at the FBI, I weaponized the FBI to hinder his entire presidency. When he gets into office again, if that happens, then he'll use the FBI to go after his enemy. It's like, dude, you did the exact thing that that you're accusing him of being able to do.
Right.
And that's sort of the reason he got rid of you, because I mean, there was probably a personal element to it. But I think you could also make the case that it wasn't personal. It was just like, hey, the director of the FBI, who I inherited because James Comey was nominated in the the Obama administration, Freudian slip, and he inherited him. He kept him on, and then he said, hey, you're weaponizing this agency, so you're fired.
Yes.
That seems like an objectively good thing for a president to do as the head of the executive branch.
Yeah, there should have been more of that, please. We didn't see nearly enough of it, it turns out. It's truly incredible that guy, like, it's always about him, right? This is a self-interest. It's like, you got to protect the FBI. But in reality, what he's saying is like, don't let them come after me, because we've been coming after them. It's projection at its finest. Bongino calls it the dipsy-do flipperoo. If you guys are fans of that show, you know what I'm talking about. But it's accusing somebody of the thing that you're doing. We're seeing it over and over again. Listen, all of that stuff, getting into the weeds and the minutia, let them talk. Trump actually did it right. He did it right in the Bronx, and they expected a turnout of somewhere like 3,000 to 4,000 people. They ended up having a crowd of like over 25,000. It speaks to the popular base when you're saying the right things, and the right things look like this. We're going to run on records alone. We don't have to get all crazy about it. You don't even have to tell people that the government's weaponized against you. Everybody sees it. You're in court every day. You're stuck in New York. Let that speak for itself. They're calling you Hitler. That hasn't landed, not in 8 years. The people who already agree with you agree with you. You got to reach out to the people that are the potential swing votes. And the swing voters are going to be based on things that matter to them, not what matter to you. It's the easiest way to go out and touch a crowd. If you go out to a crowd and you say, I'm this guy and I'm about this and this is what's important to me, who cares? Who the hell are you? You're not me. But if I go out there and say, what matters to you? If you're interested in this, this, and this, that's why you and I love Q&A. Would that be accurate? The Q&A is almost always more fun than giving a speech about like what you did. Like, who cares?
I enjoy that part immensely. I mean, you get a few crazies here and there, but I was just at an event this week and there was a candidate for office there. And I don't want to get too specific on the guy, but his allotted time he spent talking about how he was on the Trump campaign in 2015. And also basically that's all he talked about. He was like, yeah, I was on the campaign for this other guy. I was like, how is that relevant to what you're running for? What are you going to do for the constituents that you're vying for votes for right now? You can't just outsource your candidacy to saying, oh, I was with somebody else, so by sheer osmosis, you should like me. And it was completely ineffective speech from my standpoint. I mean, it's a primary and there's going to be multiple candidates. And I said, if that guy can't articulate an actual vision for how he's going to make my life better, he might be the best candidate, but I'm not going to support that. What do I get? What do I get with my vote? My vote is the only thing I have to give at this point. And you're taking it for granted by saying somebody else that you like, I worked for them at some point, so I'm good too.
What's in it for me? It's a thing they teach you in briefings all the time. The what's in it for me part of it. Why should I care what you say? When I give a speech to people, they always go like, oh, will you please come and talk to us about your story? It's like, why? People have asked me to write People have asked me to write a book. I don't want to write a book. I don't want to write a book about Kyle. Like, who cares? I don't care.
PT buff is a thing. It's when you're recruiting a source for the FBI or for anybody. It's an acronym. Put the benefits up front.
Correct.
How is this going to be good for you? Which is always laughable when you get put into a role, particularly in the FBI, that you don't want to. It makes no sense for you to be there, but they just need a body to do it. They always try to do the PT buff. They're like, hey, this will be really great for your career. I'm like, how is that? I don't want to do it. I have no ambition to do it. And my future has me not doing that for very long possible. But, I understand and appreciate the fact that you're trying to make it sound alluring.
What's in it for me is the way that you're going to move people in the middle. The people that are already ideologically inclined and that are excited about the cult of personality. And there is that. I don't know who does that for Biden because he's not very, his personality is pretty awful. It seems like it's aggressive and it's changed and it's not very inviting. Donald Trump has the opposite. People who are excited about Donald Trump are really excited about Donald Trump. They can't wait to tell you about Donald. Though you're never going to convince somebody who's sort of like on the fence. You're like, but don't you love Donald? Because I love Donald. It's like, no, I actually don't want to be part of that at all.
Can you imagine if a Democrat running in a primary right now got out there for 10 minutes straight, talked about how he got on the Biden-elect campaign in 2019 in preparation for that run and thought that like, this will win these people over?
Here's the thing. There is a place for that, okay? Because, and this is the danger that the political right has fallen into. They did that for Obama. And even being attached to Obama, because they made a deification, they did a messianic complex. You know, Obama believed it about himself, it seemed like, based on the way that he carried himself. Like, everything he did was so great. Obama did a thing that was incredibly dangerous. They deified a person. They made that sort of their lowercase g. He was a minor god, and they worshiped everything he did, and everything he did was no wrong. He never even had a scandal except for a tan suit. Like, all that kind of BS is craziness. People have done the same thing to Donald Trump, and it's utterly like it's off-putting to people that want rationality. Donald Trump is actually doing the right thing. Let me play this video of you because he's hammering the exact thing that needs to be said. And I'm going to comment on it after. I'm going to say it slightly differently, but it's very important that he continues to stay on this drum.
And these millions and millions of people that are coming into our country, the biggest impact and the biggest negative impact is against our black population and our Hispanic population, who are losing their jobs, losing their housing, losing everything they can lose. They're the ones that are affected most by what's happening. Not only the fact that you've lost the use of your schools, your parks, and your hospitals. Joe Biden's inflation. Do they have that? Do they have it?
Build the wall is what people in the Bronx are chanting. In the deep blue New York City, like one of the 5 boroughs, you got people chanting, 25,000 people chanting, build the wall. Because what's in it for me is, if you're a member of the working poor, I hear you, I see you, and I understand that the consequences of an open border is directly and disproportionately affecting you. That's the way that you win people in the middle. You say, have you noticed that your wages are stagnant? Have you noticed that you're competing for garbage jobs that aren't even that good? That you're getting less hours at work because they're hiring people around you that will work for less because they're not even here legally? Are you doing that? I'm your guy. Because I don't want that for America. I'm willing to put in protective tariffs and make other jobs cost more for people overseas. I'm willing to I'm trying to fight the playing field on the economic front. And we can argue all day about whether tariffs are effective or not. End of the day, it's about the focus. The focus is about you, and it's not about, oh, look at me, they're calling me a Nazi. I didn't hear him say that. And that's not what needs to be winning. It doesn't move people in the middle. This is where it's really important.
And this is more style over substance, but I will say this. Whenever Biden speaks, he gets to that applause line and he just continues going, and he wants to insist, oh, not a joke, man. Look what Donald Trump did there. There's a retail aspect to it. There's a professional aspect to it. He got his point across. He was not complete with it. And then the chant started, and he physically stepped back from the microphone.
He didn't expect that wasn't
not going to talk over it.
That's not a canned line that says I expect it. It doesn't say applause break on his teleprompter, because he doesn't do from a teleprompter. If you want to see people that know how to speak, and I don't go off notes, I'll have bullet points occasionally, but I usually just go like whatever's in my head and the Holy Spirit moves me to. And you could tell like sometimes that gets in Donald Trump's way. In this case, this was a spontaneous chant because it impacted the people right there, and they were like, yeah. That's the problem. The problem is wages and an open border. So let them campaign on what kills them all the time. Do not get in the way of the enemy making their mistakes. The mistakes are them thinking that abortion affects everybody. You know who it doesn't affect? Anybody who has a family. It affects very, very few people that are in committed relationships that want to bring children in. That's every conservative. But I heard this the other day. Black families are very conservative at root. It was actually on PBD talking to Bongino the other day, talking about Stephen A. Smith, who's like kind of like a raging lib, but he comes back into the middle because his grandmother and his mother, conservative at heart. People that care about families, evangelical types, even evangelical black churches, they should be voting for a Trump as long as he doesn't make it about him and about, oh, look at me, I'm going to try to elevate myself. Allow it to be about simple issues like, hey, are people in your community suffering? I think they're suffering too. And I care about them enough to make it about them. It's really, really easy. I mean, that's how politics is won.
I mean, if the populist candidate makes it about populism as opposed to just his own personal foibles from his position as a billionaire, entrepreneur, and famous person, I mean, that's why populism actually is effective. And if he's the vessel for that, ride that wave like a surfboard, man.
Yeah, write it in here. So, and because here's the alternative. This is CNN this morning. They had to go back to this because they got to go after it. The whole German reference. They brought on an NYPD. Where's she? New York University. It's an opinion piece. It's analysis saying that essentially, what do they call it? Opinion from Ruth Ben-Ghiat. She's a professor of history at New York University, which just got took over a little bit ago. So did Columbia. All these people are far leftists, and her argument is it's no surprise. She's an expert on strongmen, and that's what Trump is. He's essentially the next Mussolini. It's foolish. It's retarded, as we like to say here on this show. But how about this? You want to talk about something that's like really scary and dangerous? California is testing car tracking as a possible gas tax replacement. This is what actual totalitarians look like. They want to know where you are at all times. This is coming from Fox Business. This is the kind of stuff you can run on, because even people like my father-in-law, who live firmly on the political left, they still want to be able to be free to drive their cars places. They still don't want to have the government tell them, like, I track their every movement. People that were always worried about the fascist right, they should also be worried about the totalitarian left. So there's a winning aspect to doing stuff like this. This whole story is Gavin Newsom basically wants to take California cars, take away the gas tax that they do at the pump, and they're going to charge you based on every mile you move, which, by the way, it's the same. It's the same. But that would capture the EV people. So they're going to even target the people that are all like going after and spending all the money on the electric vehicles because they're not going to the gas pump and getting the tax. We got to get them somewhere else. It's like, how about we pay attention to things that move the needle for people? It's like, do you want the government tracking your every movement, whether it be state or federal? Oh, you don't? That's what we're about. Oh, do you want to be able to compete for jobs on a fair basis where the other person also has to be a citizen and pays taxes? We're about that too. How about that? Because that resonates with a big chunk of people down the middle that just want to be left alone.
It does, and there's a certain element to me that's like, oh, there's these big issues that I want everybody to focus on, and then, unless you're willing to cut government by 90+%, like we're going to go off for a fiscal cliff, but nobody wants to talk about that. That's, that's nerdy. We want to talk about, why are we funding PBS? Big Bird doesn't need a bailout. That's where it is. So these personal stories, something like that, where we're going to go after the guys who actually bought the Tesla and we're going to tax them more. Or there was one a few years back, I remember, that they were saying that exercising, like going for a run outside, it caused you to breathe heavier. Ergo, you were emitting more carbon dioxide. So they were going to tax you for exercising.
Yeah, sure.
That was not going to move the needle economically at all, I'm sure. I mean, it would just be a drop
threat
in the ocean.
It's a threat to your individual identity.
You can lose an election over.
Right. And speaking of losing elections, this just happened in Portland. This is worth noting. Look at this one. Okay. This is kind of wild to see. Voters are seeking law and order in flippin' Portland because it's become a war zone of dealing drugs and petty crime since they put a progressive DA who backs the Biden administration, who's been this sort of soft on crime stupidity. People are starting to realize it's the same reason that you got Giuliani in New York. At some point in time, people go, okay, folks, enough is enough. The question is, have we gotten bad enough in this country? Overwhelmingly, no, but there's places where it is bad enough. And it's bad enough in Portland. I've been there. It looks crazy. It's fully nuts to go around in Portland, and I haven't been there in a couple years. I bet it's worse. So when you start running as a tough on crime campaign saying, hey, you're electing me to be a prosecutor, I'm going to actually prosecute criminal activity. That's how you end up with getting a win over somebody that is quote unquote progressive. It is time, I think, and I made this argument to the Catholics that were sitting in the room with me the other day. It is time for the right to become not just conservative, but progressively conservative, to recapture ground. That's why you back people like Harrison Butker. That's why you start telling people, look, there are gender roles and you don't have a choice. It actually exists and you know it. And by the way, so does every cell in your body. It turns out, because no matter how girl boss you want to be, you can't fight Godzilla, and you're not leading tactical teams. There are no SEAL team platoon leaders that are female. It doesn't exist except on Netflix and except in crappy movies. This is not a thing. So just let's focus on reality and let's talk about what's in it for you. Because if you want to run on that, who cares? How about this? I'm running on, we're going to shut down a border because it's really dangerous and a bunch of illegal people come in and they either take your jobs or they do horrible things like they did in Georgia. That's easy. You want to talk about, we're going to focus on actual crime, not on fantasy crime. We're going to not go after the FACE Act. We're going to put our resources into going after people that are defrauding the U.S. government for like COVID relief funds and all the things that are supposed to be there. These are simple issues and they should be the things that people focus on. And instead, like I said, it may not be bad enough in some places, but it's definitely bad enough in like Seattle and Portland. That's a hell of a story to say that guy just lost an election over it.
I think that there's 15 counties now in Oregon that are doing the greater Iowa movement. They've actually passed initiatives or whatever they want to join the state of Iowa because they want out of that state that's basically run by Portland. The one city runs the entire state because of the population that they have there. And that's not really a keeping with a small R Republican form of government. And that you look at, I always get a kick out of looking at the map, the county by county map for like a presidential election. And it's just like a sea of red with these blue little sections, and they're all the major cities, they're the population centers. You just see like the actual amount of physical space that the country has where people generally just want to be left alone. And you talk about like being like energetically conservative as a form of government. That's why Florida's had the success it has. That's why people are moving here by droves still. And I've only been here for about 3 years, and I'm even starting to resent the number of people that are coming in at this point. Look, our government took on Disney. Like, is there a third rail that you shouldn't be touching if you're the political party that's theoretically supposed to be pro-business? Like, there's no more American brand of business than Disney. And instead they were like, you know what? You want to trans the kids, so we're going to take away your tax benefits. And wouldn't you know it, Disney stock is through the floor. And the only profitable element of that company, because their movies are tanking, but still the only profitable element of that company is the park, because people are still coming to Florida because they approve it.
Right. It checks. Let me break away real quick and do sponsor read. Mad Hat Jerky, folks, if you want to support the program, a number of you have been out there trying it out. Nobody had written back to me and said, hey, Kyle, you led me wrong. Not a single person. Garrett O'Boyle just told me he got it and he thought it was great. They have a love it or your money back guarantee on the taste. MattHatJerky.com/Kyle. KYLE is the promo code. What's in it for you? 20% off. That's a good deal. You guys can set up afterwards for a subscription. If there's something you like, you say, hey, give it to me every month, every 2 weeks, every whatever. My favorite is the black truffle. Hands down, it is the best. The roasted garlic is a close second. The original spice is pretty good too. If you like peppery stuff, I'm mixed on whether I like the peppery every day or not. I'm sort of just a new mommy. Just give me the rich flavor. It's tender, it's well done, it's real meat, and you can even get the USDA Prime stuff, which is fantastic. That's the only ones I'm ordering at this point. MattHatJerky.com/Kyle. I think it's like $1 more for the bag of USDA Prime. Yeah, you're not ever going to be going wrong there. It's even on the Steve Friend diet. If you wants to get some, maybe I'll send you some. Have you had some yet?
I haven't had some, but I also have a beef company sponsor at the AMRAD. So
yeah, but you could eat some dehydrated
regular plugged up.
You're just gonna be completely dehydrated. Okay, I want to leave us with this note. Okay, if people are talking about a movement, and I'm not sure I'm part of any movement, and I'm not sure I'm part of any team. I'm part of the Suspendables team. We're gonna do the right thing, the right way, for the right reason. There's actually a famous and one of my favorite motivational speeches ever given by someone out of Hollywood. It was done in a game or in a movie that was called Any Given Sunday. And just like in life, which he's going to be talking about, we're going to hear Pacino talk about it. This politics today in a divided nation, where, as you said, the cities are overwhelmingly blue, and the rural areas are red across the board, where 90% of the landmass is red, and they just want to be left alone. It's a game of inches, and it's not going to be won by fanaticism on either the left or the right, or anybody saying our guy is so great because of this. It's going to always be done by what's in it for you. It's going to be done by the small inch gains, just saying that policy was bad, my policy is better about this, that you care about, and you make it about the individual. He talks about a game of inches. I want to see the inches gamed because you can add them all up. So we're going to play this motivational speech going into the weekend. I think it is look, if you're not united as a team for the right reasons, in the right way, you're running the right speed at the right time to the right, pattern, then you don't connect those passes. And I think Pacino actually says it correct. Everybody has to do the right thing at the right time. They have to do it individually. So let's get a little pumped up with, like I said, even the music here is outstanding. This is one of the best speeches.
When you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make the fucking difference between winning and losing.
I don't want to see anybody on the same team clawing each other. I don't want to see a loss. What I want to see is a game of people doing it right by the right reasons and focusing on the thing and not getting in the way of the enemy, whatever the opponent is, when they're making the mistakes. The left has been conspicuously silent about a lot of this stuff because they see that it's causing division. So let's just see that. Let's just focus on the things that are the winners. Steve, what do you got coming up on AMRAD for tomorrow? Let people know when it is.
Oh, yeah. We got AMRAD come up tomorrow. Let me just first say that Steeman Willie Beeman can be my quarterback any day.
Oh, yeah.
The AMRADs are on tomorrow, Saturday, noontime. We let you sleep in a little bit. Garrett and I are actually going to be talking about something related to football that was a few years back, Colin Kaepernick and taking the knee and it going and actually looking at what he said and did and maybe doing a memory dump of his characteristics and his traits and his actual positions and being like, you know, was that guy maybe suspendable? So we'll get very uncomfortable tomorrow on AMRAD, which is the American Radicals podcast, rumble.com/AMRADpod. And I'll put this out there. I did it in your chat earlier. I'll do it tomorrow. We're contemplating maybe a Memorial Day special episode, which will be on Monday, where we're just going to talk about some of the fallen stories, some of the great heroes of our armed services. So if people want that, I think Garrett and I are really amenable to doing it.
Fantastic. Folks, you can see the chat right now if you guys want to weigh in on that. I'm sure Steve will be reading it very, very closely. At Real Steve Friend on Twitter, Real_Steve Friend on True Social. You don't have an Instagram, do you?
I do, Real Steve Friend. But good. It's like my mom, I think, follows. That's about it.
That's good.
But I got to build it up.
No, don't. I hate Instagram. It's the worst. Thanks for joining me today for Friendly Friday, and you're the best. And I look forward to talking to you on. We'll see you on the AMRAD on the next one. I'm not sure. I'm assuming I'm going to do a Monday show as well. So we'll negotiate here. I'll let you guys know. Steve, have a great one. Thanks for coming on.
You too, guys. Have a great weekend. Happy Memorial Day.
All right. So that's the show for the day, folks. That's what it's about. The game of inches. Let's not get in the way of the enemy making these mistakes. We have to just be patient. It's very easy if we're being honest with ourselves. They will do all the work at this point. You should always let them do all the work. And they're doing it. They're tearing themselves apart. They're even getting upset about whether or not their positions on Israel can be aligned. Like, let that happen. We don't have to be in the way of it. I'm going to give you guys a 5-star review. Here it comes right now. By the way, you guys have done great on the 5-star reviews. They've stepped up to 971. We've either overwhelmed the algorithm or you guys are just getting it done and we just needed to ask you nicer. This is from Greg's XR, which I think is his phone. It says, love you, but as a U.S. Air Force veteran, ironically, served in a similar unit to yours 30 years ago. I'm not sure if I'm welcome in your circle of friends due to my evangelical beliefs. Folks, straighten him out in the chat right now. Of course he's welcome here. The woman on The View is not an evangelical. She's actually an apostate ex-Catholic. I trust you, but we can disagree on minor theological distinctions and still work to drive this country back to a godly nation. That others may live, which is the motto of Pararescue, that others may live. It's a great motto. It's one of those things that it actually resonated with me pretty deeply. It's one of those things that would give me goosebumps when you say it, because there's an entire Pararescueman creed at the end of it. You say, these things I do that others may live. It reminded me of my Jesuit schools that I came out of in high school, where we talked about your goal was to be a man for others. Man for others. So we can do all those things, that others may live, being a man for others. All of those focus on somebody else. And that's how you're going to win the politics in the day right now. People want to be made aware that you care about what they're about. Trump can do it. He's doing it right now. He did it in the Bronx, and it was very successful. We got to continue pushing that kind of stuff. That is the message that should be resonating, and it resonates with you because you're the audience, and it's talking about you. As Steve Friend just said, populism works when you go with what's popular for the people. Folks, if you want to support the program, make sure you've hit a like over on Rumble. Make sure you've hit a like on YouTube. If you want to subscribe to the program or follow it, depending on where you're at, we appreciate that. Hit the notification if you want to be notified when we go live at 0930 Eastern Time every weekday. And I'm still negotiating on the Monday thing. Probably yes. The Kyle Seraphin Show brought to you by the following. You guys know who they are. If you want to leave us a message, and I really do appreciate them, and I read all the messages that come in, questions, comments. I left off sarcastic remarks, but those are my favorites as well. KyleSeraphin.com. There's a contact me form there. It goes right to me. I will read them. I don't respond to all of them, but I do respond to a fair number of them. So if you guys got something that's important to share, I'm not doing any investigations for anybody else. I'll just let you know right now, I can't do any investigations for you. I don't have the legal authority to do it. But if you have things that you want to share, that's where you share it. KyleSeraphin.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate you guys with the open mind. And we'll see you again either Monday or Tuesday. I'll let you know on social media, even if I don't want to be there. God bless you. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.